Yeah, I wanted to have this conversation just to make sure that we on the same page regarding the dependency list. And so the starting point is that I've got a feeling that I've repeated the same things a few times, which is totally fine. I mean, it happens. But at that point, I thought that maybe it would be more efficient to have a conversation. Yeah, maybe starting with you, Andy. I don't know if you had the time to read my comments. Okay, so
Mhm.
do you have any questions at this point? Is it
I
clear
don't.
enough?
So I spent a few hours this morning reading about all of these things.
Or like
And then
packages,
looking at
package
what
managers, package types.
yeah, it's a task just to know what to Google, right? Because it's like, is it a module, library, package manager, package type,
Yeah,
dependency,
it's
dev
a domain.
dependency,
We need some kind of
peer
ontology.
dependency.
Yeah, we need some kind of ontology just to know the concepts, be familiar with the concepts. But yeah, that makes sense. I'm not surprised.
I
Even
need to
it's
agree on
also
this.
fun to get to know all what the versions and requirements are, and
Mhm.
depends, yeah, the way all these things are solved in the package managers. Um, so yeah, just to recap, um, a project relies on a package manager to parse a dependency file in order to solve the requirements of the project and build some kind of graph of all the dependencies, and then fetch, and then to fetch all the dependencies, all the packages, because you can't download the libraries just like that. It has to be these have to be packaged. So the package manager then downloads the packages, install them, and there are correlation between uh, package managers and package types, between package managers and languages, and but it's a diverse, very diverse world. Um, it's possible that a single package manager handles different package types, and it's possible that a single package manager is compatible with multiple APIs, and
So, in your definition, what would be an example of a package? Is that what we have as a list? Is like active model, active job, action view, action pack? Are those packages or are those modules?
no, these are packages.
Okay.
Well, actually, yeah, it's uh, it's a bit ambiguous. We say package. Well, in the
Yeah,
case of Ruby, we say gems because why not? I mean, it's fancy.
they're all different.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Okay.
so we say
So,
that we say this is where there's some kind of ambiguity. We say that Rails is a package and it has versions, but you can't consider when you look at the technical details, the technical implementation, a version of Rails is fetched as a package. It's a gem file. That's some kind of archive containing all the files, source code, because it's not a compiled language. That in itself is a package because it's self-contained and it contains the thing, the library, ready to be used with its manifest files. Depending on the perspective. Depending on the perspective, Rails is package and it has versions, or Rails, I don't know, 5.2.1, I don't know the versions at this point, is a package in itself, downloaded by a package manager, depending on the perspective.
okay.
But
So,
but in the case of Ruby, the package manager is bundler. The packages are the gems. They are download it from mostly rubygems.org, because this is the main public registry for open source packages. But it's possible for a single project to combine multiple sources. The public one, this rubygems.org registry, and then some other private registries. Yeah.
So the core disconnect in this issue is, what do we have as columns in the list? Because we're just going to have a flat list. It's just our MVC. And you can download it. That's great. But the core is, what are we labeling each column in the list, and what is the list going to be composed of, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah. That's a tricky one. Now that's a difficult question.
Actually, may I?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So, I actually like very much your idea, Fabian, about read their source like files. So we can rename language to like source, and then list the names of file where these packages are come from, like gem file, or I don't know the other names for other languages. Why it's not works?
Mm-hmm.
It's simple and clear.
Yeah, doing that, we will work around at least 2 issues, maybe 3 issues at this point. Naming that gets difficult, like, and finding the relationships between the file and the package type. But in some cases, it does make sense to use a package type. Language makes more sense. So we would avoid this discussion on the proper name of the column, like package type, language, package manager, just the name of a file, because that's something we know for sure. It comes from the file. That's one thing, but also because the list is likely to be pretty long, and if we expose the file, in the case, well, with most package managers, we've got 2 files. We've got sets of 2 files. A main file where developers explicitly list the dependencies of the project. So that's the one maintained by the developers. And another one, usually called a log file, containing all the dependencies. And that one is generated by the package manager when solving the graph. It's not even a tree. Solving the graph, like trying to find the answer, considering all the requirements in the project. And so it would be very convenient to have to export the file, because then if you want to know what we sometimes call the top-level dependencies, the dependencies explicitly required by the developers, just have a look at the main dependency file, the gem file in the case of bundler. And if you filter on the other one, you'd have all the other dependencies, maybe not at the top level, maybe really nested in the graph, far from the top-level dependencies. So we would have this feature, this capacity of this ability for users to filter on the main dependencies, on the top-level dependencies, just because they can hide the log file and focus on the main dependency file. Right now, that's all we've got, because right now, given the report syntax we use, we don't know the relationships between any given dependency and all the top-level dependencies. And that's one thing. We don't have the data to build the graph on the front end. And even if you've got all the data, then creating this graph on the front end is likely to be I mean, it's likely to take some time to get it right. There are UX considerations, I think. We can't just throw a graph just like that. So yeah, so as the first step, I recommend we just go for the flat list with the name of the file, the path of the file. Because there's something else. It's possible to have multiple files targeting the same package manager within the same project. It's not unusual. I mean, maybe it's not the most common case, sorry, but it happens. And if things are complex enough, given that we've got all the packages not explicitly required by the users, not explicitly requested by the developers, we should not make the things even more confusing by, in a way, merging all the files in a single list.
What if the list was based on file instead in the future?
Well,
like
to
we
me,
can have separate lists for separate files.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we could do that in the future. So to get this right, we're not using the lock file, or we are using the lock file to generate this?
I'd say we use the log file, making it possible for users to filter this out in the UI. They may want to focus on what's explicitly listed in the main dependency file they are editing themselves.
Mm-hmm. Why is file path important and they know the file?
Sorry?
Why is file path important if they know the file?
Well, if you've got multiple files, if you've got two projects in the same repo, that's the only way to know which is which. Does that answer your question?
Are we only doing a single project, or are we dealing with multiple projects? Right
now, there are no restrictions, meaning that with Gymnasium, because we're going to use the parser, Gymnasium's parser, if there are multiple files, we can have the multiple files in the output.
Okay.
And if it makes, and just to gain some perspective on that, it makes things more complicated, because then we got to deal with this multi-project repo. But choosing which project among 2 or 3 is the one is even harder, I think. So yeah.
Do we have an example of a multi-project repo today in GitLab?
Oh, we've got many, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That has this information in it, the files that we need to look at.
Yeah, I mean, so right now what we've got Gymnasium scanning the dependencies. So I can illustrate this, but in the context of dependency scanning. But it's not what we are aiming at. We want a dependency list, sorry. But that's something we can. I mean, we can find a project, and I can generate the output for you, if that helps.
Yeah. With the scenario you're speaking of, yeah.
Yeah. Also, what's you may have what would be comparable to false positives. Let's imagine, and it's not. There's nothing crazy there. Let's imagine that you've got one main project in your repo and something else in a other directory, which in fact is a test project. Like your project, your main project in the repo is a server, and somewhere you got a test client. So you get 2 projects, and you're not interested in the second one because the second one is not going in production. It's not deployed. There's no, I mean, you don't care much, and in that way, if you expose the files, it's easy to just ignore what corresponds to the client.
Well, I mean, it's easy to see them. It's not easy to ignore them when they're in a flat list when we start, right? So
yeah, well,
or ignore them in the terms of
I hope at some point. I mean, in the very near future, sorry, we'll have the ability to filter out a file. You know,
okay,
we'll have some kind of filter. I don't know.
Sorry, Fabian.
Yeah.
I have just a question for you because I'm hearing a lot about this file-based grouping or recognition. Is this just because we want to identify multiple possible applications in one single repo, or is there any other thing? Because I'm mainly thinking if we have a project that has multiple technologies like backend and front end, so you have Ruby and Node, for example, or Ruby and JavaScript, and you want to consider all the dependencies or the packages for one single application instead of one single file. So which is the value of having the file explicitly exposed as part of the list? That's what I'm not getting.
Yeah, that's because to me this is it's great as a first step. Sorry, because we cover so many cases. And cases we're not even thinking about. Multi-projects, problem solved. Very long files, very long list because of log files with many list nested dependencies. Problem solved because we can ignore that file.
But not in the MVC, as far as I can see.
Well, maybe you can save some time, not focusing too much on the wording and on.
Because I'm mainly thinking that probably instead of identifying files, we should identify apps that are in the project, and then create different bill of materials based on the app instead of a file. So if you have a gem file and a yarn file in the same directory, they are probably the same application. So they should be considered as one single entity. And then maybe we can work on directories instead of files. This will allow us to have, a simple way to recognize multiple applications, because I expect multi-app projects to have one directory for each of the projects, for each of the apps they are containing. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does. It totally does. And we eventually we're going there because it's needed in the context of auto-remediate. Actually, you've got to consider the set of files to fix the dependency, the vulnerable dependency. But anyways, yes, we can do that. But it's not this one. It's not something.
Just to be clear, I feel this information could be useful. So the file where the dependency is defined is an attribute that may be useful. What I don't really feel is that this should be a first-class entity, the one driving how we organize the list. That's my only concern. Because I see people that say, oh, this is a dependency. I want to know where this dependency is defined because I want to remove it, for example. So they can see the file, they can click on the file and jump to the web ID or something like that, that they can remove the dependency, they can update information about the version or whatever it is. But still, it's hard for me to understand if customers will go to the list and will see, okay, I want to see what is in the gem file. Then I want to see what is in the yarn configuration. It's more like I want to know what is part of my application the main goal of the BOM is having a full list of your application components. So that's why I see application is probably more fitting the idea of I'm organizing this. And this will make a flat list in most of the cases where just one application is defined into the project, into the repository. And we can, as said, we can support, but that's maybe not the MVC. It's not needed in the MVC. Define which is the folder the app is. And that's maybe my lack of knowledge of how those technologies work. But I expect that if you have multiple Ruby apps in one single repo, you will have multiple gem files, one for each subdirectory where the apps are storing their code. Is it correct?
Yeah, and it sounds reasonable to group by directory. Yes.
So my possible approach is that let's collect the information about the file while doing the scan process. So on the backstage part, Gymnasium Analyzer. And let's link this information to each of the dependencies, like an attribute, like they have the version number. And then when we presented the UI, it will be a secondary attribute, let's say, not grouping by that, but we can use the path of the file to recognize subdirectories and so on, and so group by them if we want to do that.
Yeah.
So we don't have to change mainly the output, the format of the report.
No, in the output, we must have a file path, because otherwise we're gonna end up with ambiguities. We're not gonna be able to solve. I mean, can you imagine as a user if you got multiple projects, knowing that in the same yarn file you can have multiple occurrences of the same package? So it's like it would be, it would. People would go crazy in a project like this one. But yeah, I was thinking about something else. So, I mean, the path, in the end, the path doesn't matter if you've got just you've got just one set of projects of files. Sorry, getting tired, I guess. Yes, I mean, if you've got only one set of files in the root directory, then there's no need to expose this information to the users.
Oh, actually, we can expose that, as a secondary one. So if people want to see exactly the line where the file, instead of just saving the file, we can also save the line number where the dependency is defined inside the file. So we have the link like we have for vulnerabilities that you can click and jump exactly to the actual line where the vulnerability is. We can do the same. You can jump to accept file, the gem file or the yarn file where dependency is defined. And this could be, something more that you can show. What I see valuable is that if we have multiple apps, we can organize two different BOMs with the two different apps, and you can consider them independently. So even if you export them, you still have the information that allows you to recognize which is one and which is the other. If it's not, we can just show one single default app, or we can just show nothing and just a flat list, and that's the default. If you don't have multiple applications, that Andy and Kyle can think about that. But I'd say let's keep the information, flat information in the file without organizing in any way. Let's just organize like what we want to show in the UI only. And so we can change it later. We don't need to change the format of the file because it will contain file name and line number anyway. And in the UI, we can iterate. So just to be clear, I like the conversation, obviously. I just want to be sure that this is not a blocker for the first iteration, because probably the need for multiple apps support on these kind of things is not the very minimum requirement for the bill of materials. The very minimum requirement is that the list is available with version numbers and you can export them in somehow.
Yes.
And just sorry, I just thinking about that from the directory, you can extract all this information, like in packages JSON. You can find the name of the app, probably.
In the case of NPM.
Yeah, in probably some cases, so we can show Excel, the name and the details about the app, and you can provide this information as, part of the report itself. And so you can see in the bill of materials, the app with details. Maybe you can expand the section. You can see the details about that specific application, and then the components. So the bill of materials will be very focused on, the app with all the information you can see there. And if you have multiple apps and you're able to recognize them, you can find them as, this is the list of apps, and then you can expand and see exactly the BOM for each of them. Because I'm thinking in the future, we may want to support group level bill of materials. So in that case, we have for sure to address multiple applications, because there will be one application for each repository for each project in the group. So maybe we can think, the very same way to support multiple apps in the same repo.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, having a UI that's already compatible with that already supports the use case of the dashboard. That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, to go back to your suggestion, if you got a flat list, no information, no visible information on the file, but the ability to jump to the file in the case there's some ambiguity as an MVC, why not? I'm totally aware that we're not that multi-project repos are not what we've got on mind in this MVC, but I just want to make sure that if this happens, that users have quite fairly complex projects, I mean, like GitLab itself, they can make sense of the data they've got. And with your suggestion, I think we're fine.
Okay, I've got to run to another meeting,
Same here.
but you can continue to wrap up, and then I can post in the issue an update based on this conversation. So we're going in the right direction.
Thank you, Andy.
Yep.
And Fabian, just consider that there is the backstage part of it. So we have a separate issue, how to extract information. And this is a separate discussion, but still, something we need to do at some point.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.